It's a brand new release that just happened. It is Claude 3. Anthropic just dropped it. Wanted to share this with you, see exactly what it is, how it compares to ChatGPT in real time, and is it the ChatGPT killer? Okay. So, according to the benchmarks that were released, this beat ChatGPT on the majority of everything of the benchmarks that were tested. However, I never believed those because they were issued from the company that created it. So, I want to test this in real time and show you the results of what happened. Okay. And I think there's a lot that are positive and negative about this that many people are missing. And so I'm going to walk you through this in real time. So let's get after it. So let me share my screen with you. You're going to basically see what everybody is effectively reviewing with this in terms of how it's being viewed with these benchmarks. And so here, as you can see, what this is basically, this is a screen review of kind of how it operates with the tests. Okay, so these are the 3 different versions of Claude, where we got Opus, Sonnet, and Haiku. And Opus is the $20 a month one that's on comparable, or I should say comparable par to GPT-4 Plus, which is what we're going to be testing today. I got 3 real-world examples that we could test and look through this. So as you can see, it's got supposedly better undergraduate knowledge, significantly better graduate level knowledge, right? Grade school math it's better at, math problem solving it's allegedly better at, multilingual math, code, reasoning over text, mixed evaluations, knowledge, and common skills. So according to this, it beats it at every benchmark. Now, I'm a little bit skeptical that it beats it by every benchmark, especially if we have 95.4% versus 95.3%. That's just me. So I want to test this in real time, and we can take a look and see effectively how this kind of pans out. I am going to have these side by side so you could see what it looks like in real time as we go through this. Okay. So let me just make that a little bit bigger. Oh man, the screen does not want to cover it. Okay. So now we're good to go. All right. So I'm going to test this on 3 different areas. The first one is something that is near and dear to my heart because basically this is the exact prompt that I tested when I first tried ChatGPT 3.5 that made me stop in my tracks, pivot my business, and realize that everything that I needed to do moving forward was geared towards AI. And the reason being is because these questions, or this question that I'm walking through, gave me insight that really took me 10 years to learn when I was selling and working with C-level executives of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through this. I'm going to give Claude the click in advance, go through that. Okay. So we have an internal server error. Not good for you, Claude, in terms of testing. Let's try it again. Okay. And once again, this is the paid version that I'm using. So I'm supposed to have prioritized access. We had 2 server issues. That's not a strong start by Claude. So that's why I always like to test these, because some of these things on paper look perfect. And then when you try them, they are not. Okay. So let's look at the difference. So basically what this is for is the CFO of a publicly traded company. It's a SaaS company between 100 million and 300 million in revenue. Okay. This is pretty deep knowledge you need to understand. So I would put this in the graduate level reasoning. So let's look at these side by side. So something really strong. I mean, even the visual aspect of how it's identified or shows up here with the heading, I think is a little cleaner on the ChatGPT side versus the Claude from Anthropic side. So if you look at it, we got revenue growth, ARR revenue growth. Okay. This is a little more specific, but basically it hits ARR, gross margin. Okay. So this has customer acquisition costs, which is interesting. Customer retention, churn rate. Then we got lifetime value and CAC ratio, gross margin, and churn rate. Okay. So it's really interesting. If I had to look at these 2 side by side, it's got the rule of 40, which is effective. However, I would have to say that ChatGPT is better as of right now. A, because it didn't crash on me. B, because I like the visual of it a little bit better. And C, some of the answers are a little bit tighter, although this has some good answers as well. Okay. So I would say it's pretty close in terms of that. Now, according to the review, once again, this is something that Claude, when we looked at these benchmarks, is supposed to destroy. I should say not destroy, but basically beat it pretty significantly on the ChatGPT side. So that's why I always like to test these myself. All right. So let's open some fresh windows and start a new chat for both of these. Okay, we'll do the same thing for ChatGPT. Now, the next thing we're going to do something really simple. This isn't heavy. We are going to do a simple math problem. Okay. So we're going to see how fast this operates. I'm really interested to see this because I tested it And I was very interested to see what happened. Now let's see how it operates here. Okay. So we pop this in both areas. And as you can see, this is thinking. Now, OpenAI with ChatGPT, I don't know what's going on here. Like it's basically looks like it's thinking. Okay. Now, Claude already finished the answer to the problem. Okay. So now basically ChatGPT just did it as well. The thing I like, I'd have to give this one to Claude. So on the math side, I mean, it gave the step by step, right? Let's calculate 3 cubed. I'll multiply the result here. And so this is going to be really, really critical, specifically for data analysis as we're looking at different values and like how to calculate that. Now, granted, ChatGPT did get this right. This just has a little bit more detail and was faster. So I would go round 2 to Claude 3, not ChatGPT. Okay. So the last but not least, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen temporarily because I want to get this set up properly. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start 2 new chats. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stretch both these tools. Okay. And by stretching, what I mean by that is we're effectively going to put something more complicated in. So what I'm doing right now, and I'll show you the doc that I use, but I'm pulling this from my personal drive. I'm actually inserting an example for a data set that we could do an analysis on, right? So I'm inserting this on both of them. And this would be enacting effectively on the ChatGPT side, what's called data analysis, right? If we were doing this on Claude, I believe it is just called, I don't know if it has that as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen with you again because I have it pretty much all set up. And then we'll just pop in the prompt so you can see what we're looking at here. All right. Let me just do this and we will share this. Okay. So we are going to insert the last 2 prompts and we're going to see this in real time. Now, what you're going to see, and shoot, man, why don't I pull this up here? I'm going to pause this once again. I'm going to pull up the doc because I really want you to see this. I think you're going to like it. But this is more involved data. So if you're looking at this from a business perspective, effectively what this is this would be client revenue, right? So this would be client revenue. This would be examples of the company, like what their revenue is, all these kind of details. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you what this looks like. Okay, I got it up now. You could hate me if you stop watching. I feel bad because I did not crush it on that one. So you could throw virtual tomatoes at me and tell me I suck in the comments. But what you're going to see here is this an example of all the data, and it's kind of crunched together so you can't see it, but it's got employees, contract value, lifetime value, sales cycle length, information, annual revenue. So there's a lot of rich data in this doc. Okay. So we're not going to really go through that and open it up. But what I've done is I've attached this on both sides. So we're going to take some really, really simple prompts that I've constructed to leverage this because I've been absolutely blown away on the data analysis side, specifically with ChatGPT. I've never used it like this for Claude 3, but who knows? Maybe I will start doing that. Okay. So now you see these side by side. And so I'm going to click ChatGPT first, and then we will get Claude, right? So let's see what happens on this. I'm really interested to see what happens. Okay. So we have Claude thinking, we have ChatGPT thinking. Okay. So what it's doing is ChatGPT is basically confirming what it is. Okay. So it looks like they are doing the same thing for Claude 3. So they're both kind of looking at it and identifying, okay, so this goes straight into data analysis, which is good. Okay, now this is starting to go straight into data analysis. All right, very exciting. So medium number of employees, 60, annual revenue, 9 million, total funding, average sales length. Okay. So now this is proceeding with deeper analysis, whereas Claude is just getting right into it. I love this. I'm pretty impressed with this. Now, here's the big thing that many are going to walk right by with this. I started getting more comfortable putting data into AI tools once I understood that the data wasn't being trained or used. Now, I don't believe Claude 3 has that in there. However, ChatGPT does with the Teams account, which is what I have, right? So it's basically ChatGPT Plus with that extra layer on it. So if you're looking at how to use data or when to use data, even though we're running in some issues right now with ChatGPT, I would strongly suggest, unless you sanitize the data every time, which means clean it up, that you might want to look at using a secure solution. Now, it's really interesting because this is having issues with it, whereas this is completely done. All right. So I'm going to proceed to step 2 and see if there's something else we could do. So let's have it look at the top 20% largest customers, right? Let's have it do that. And let's see how Claude performs. And this is why you truly got to know the ins and outs of what's happening here and the nuances, because what you're going to see is there's sometimes these areas where even though one solution might work better than the other, there's big risk if you use one over the other. Okay. So what we're doing here is this is giving an example of very specific ones. Okay. So it's giving the top 10% and the top 20% of customers with the value and the naming. So this is really good recall because the fake companies that we have on here that we're using are there. Now, we're looking at this on the right. This gave basically more summarized analysis. Okay, let's look at the key takeaways here. It's bogging down a little bit. All right, key takeaways. We are already on the second test for this. So I would have to say this is pretty impressive from Anthropic and Claude 3 with this. Now, I have used this and run into hiccups for this with ChatGPT. Let's just finish the last step and see how that performs, okay? Let's see how this one drops. So then we can give a full analysis. Look at that. Annual revenue there, total revenue. Okay, this is impressive. This is really impressive. Looks like ChatGPT is still processing, so there's definitely a big difference in speed as we're seeing when it comes to the data. Once again, though, does it have the security? That's one of the core things. And so what you're going to see with these different models is effectively, and I'm going to shut this off. Okay, here we go. Basically, it's doing the same thing. So it's a little bit further behind. And now it's going through the highlights, which I think are pretty strong. Let me just make this bigger. Okay. Not the strongest showing. So on these 3 tests, if we look at it right now, I would say Claude showed stronger with the exception of kind of like the problem it had at the beginning. So, I mean, the interesting thing that we saw today, just to kind of wrap things up, is everybody's like, this is the ChatGPT killer. It's going to beat it. It's beating on every benchmark. You're seeing sometimes that, once again, I tried it and Claude didn't work. And then now I'm trying ChatGPT at the end and it didn't work. So these are not perfect, but what you're going to see is if you try and use them multiple times over, you'll find those nuances in and out, what works well in what situations. So it's hard to look at these kind of benchmarks that are being used without leveraging this yourself for your exact specific use cases. So appreciate you joining me today. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. And if you haven't done this already, subscribe. I am putting time and energy into this so you can see real world use cases versus just the news on what's happening with, Claude 3, ChatGPT. How does it work in the real world? And so I hope you enjoy this and we will see you on the next video.